So you have been given a question and then you need to write the code. Writing the code, you need variables, definitely. Which variable am I to use? Am I to use only one variable? Am I to use two variables? Where should I place this line of code? This video will help to clarify. Well, these are some questions that I'll be asking. Or when an algorithm or a particular question is given me, what am I to do? Before you start solving the question, try and then break down the code into the separate control structures that have been given you or that you've been taught. So you read the question over and over again and you get a mental picture of what the question actually requires from you. Let's say you have a question, write a program to find the sum of the first 10 counting numbers. I've always been talking about counting numbers. Well, anyways, I think that's the simplest. So the moment you get the simplest, you can always do the complex. So write a program to find the sum of the first 10 counting numbers. You can list all the outputs on paper, okay? And so you try to sort of write some and then see how your program can work on them. If your program can work on few numbers, then when giving large numbers too, it can work on them. So you break it down and they are saying write a program to find the sum of the first 10 counting numbers. So you need to know the counting numbers. How will your program generate the counting numbers? All right. The next thing too is to list down the key points required from you in the question. One of the key points that you will remember will be counting numbers. How will I even start to write something for me to get counting numbers? And what at all is the program requesting? The sum. If the program is requesting the sum, then it means that you need to find a way to generate the counting numbers. If you generate the counting numbers, then now you can think of, okay, while the counting numbers start coming, I need to get something that helps me to add the numbers as they come. But where will the numbers be coming from? How will I get them? So if you think of generation, then you will get a clue which control structure to use. All right. Now you break the algorithms into the various control structures that we have learned about so far. You've learned about the loops, you've learned about decision, you've learned about sequence. Where should I play this? Where should I place this particular statement? Will I need a loop at all? Is there a condition I'm supposed to check for? Okay. And then now we have initialization. I'm supposed to generate a list of counting numbers, but where do I start from? What at all is the first of counting numbers? If I know which number is the first counting number, then I can maybe begin with an initialization. Asking ourselves these questions will help us to know where to start from. Okay. And then the next question there can be a lot of questions you ask yourself. But based on these, it will help you to narrow down where to start from. Because a lot of times getting a question can be confusing. And then now, is the code supposed to print something at the end of the execution? If the code is supposed to print something and that thing is supposed to be in a variable, then that variable should not be declared inside the loop. The variable should be declared before the loop so that at the end of the loop, I will have access to that variable. Anyways, people have different ways of doing it, so let's proceed. Is there something that should happen continuously? The moment you hear continuously, I'm supposed to do something repeatedly, print all the counting numbers, printing them all. So now you know you are supposed to do something for a lot of people. So it has to be in a loop. So something that happens continuously has to come inside a loop. Okay. If you are checking for a particular condition, then you are talking about decisions. which is the if people. If you are doing something continuously, then you are talking about loops. If something is supposed to come after something, maybe you need to initialize something to 1 before you enter the loop, then the loop will now be increasing that value. It means that that thing should be at the top of the loop so that after you have initialized it, then now you can use its value to maybe be the control variable for the loop. Okay, we proceed. This would be very short. Do you need a variable to be changing all the time? So let's think of this question that said we are supposed to find the sum of the first 10 counting numbers. When a question is given to you, you don't know where to begin. How will I even get a counting number? Well, the only thing you know is where you begin from. So let's say I know the first counting number to be 1. If I know the first counting number to be 1, how will I generate the other ones? How will I sum them? Right now, at this point, we all understand mathematics. So we can have a go around this one. If a counting number, the first of counting numbers, is stored inside the variable, let's say x, then to generate the other counting numbers, we need to think of a loop. And we know that a loop is more or less like a circle that continuously runs. It runs in a circular form. So let's look at this example. We initialize I to 1, and then now we need to generate the rest of the other numbers. So the moment the loop runs for the first time, the moment the loop runs over here, as the loop runs, the value of I has to be increased in order for us to get the other number. So it means that if something is supposed to be changing all the time, then we need to initialize that thing outside the loop so that when the loop runs, that value gets incremented. So that's basically with this question. Have you thought about how you will end your loop? Because a loop will only start if there is a condition, and that condition is true. Have you thought about how to end your loop? Would you be printing something continuously? Would you be doing something continuously? If you are supposed to do something continuously, then that thing should be inside the body of the loop. This is what I mean by the body of the loop. So you have the while here, you have the end while here. The middle part is where the statement that will be repeated continuously will come. And then another thing you need to think about is, would you need a stream of numbers? When I talk about a stream of numbers, I am only talking about you are printing maybe counting numbers, maybe odd numbers. Those numbers, they come continuously, okay? And then how would you generate them? I've already spoken about that in the previous point. Uh, one other question you need to ask yourself will be, how would you get those numbers? So if it's supposed to come continuously, nobody is going to give you those numbers. You need to find a way to now generate them. And so that is where the loop happens. The loop comes into place. Have you thought of a variable to bring out those numbers? So we talked about initialization, where you know the start. Okay. And then after you know the start, you need to find a way to generate the others. Or there are some things you would want to do after you get those numbers. So you need a variable to now store it. Now let's think of a question that does the summing. I think I have this thing here. Okay. Well, we'll get there. After asking all those questions, have you hand traced? Let's say you've asked yourself all those questions, you've put something down. You need to now go through your code manually to now be able to see if it works with the numbers that you have used. Or maybe it's not numbers at all, it might be a list of items. Okay. Well, this is a question saying write a program to print the first 10 counting numbers. Now there are some clues to help you out. how will you get those numbers? So now we need to think of how to generate the numbers. And then what actions need to be done continuously. From the question, we can see that they are asking us for the first 10 counting numbers. But we don't know where to get them. Under normal circumstance, we can list them manually, like writing them 1, 2, up to 10. But if we are writing the code, how do we get those numbers? Then the next thing is, will we need a loop at all? If we know when we start, how will we get the rest? So the moment something of generation comes in mind, okay, I have the first one, how do I get the other ones? Something needs to be incremented so that you produce the other ones. So that is where generation comes in. You are going to generate numbers, so you need a loop. The moment you think of a loop, the loop has to end at a point. So you need a variable to control the loop. Okay. And then now, when it comes to ending, well, after your loop comes to an end, will you need the control variable? The last time I said that a control variable is what controls the loop. And in the end, that control variable will make the condition of the loop false, like will make that condition that causes the loop to run false. So in the end, the control variable would have a value which is more than maybe what you are looking for. So will you need the control variable at all after the loop has finished running? And then now, do we need to initialize the control variable? Yes, we need to. Before you start using the control variable, it should have a value with which that your condition will be checked with. Now let's start and then take a look at the code. Okay, so we have this question. Write a program to print the first 10 counting numbers. The first thing we ask is, how will we get those numbers? And two, if nothing at all, we know which number is the first counting number. So I need to get a variable which I think is the first of the counting numbers. So over here, I write x. So x is now the variable I want to store the first of the counting numbers. And after getting I to be equal to 1, the x to be equal to 1, I need something that will help me generate the other numbers. The next point over here says that, will we be doing something continuously? What we need to be doing continuously for the 10 of the items will be to print them. So if I'm supposed to print something continuously, then I will need a loop. Okay, I will need to put those actions in a loop. Now, every loop has a condition. I'm using a while loop over here. Every loop has a condition. So if every loop has a condition, then I need a condition for my loop. But over here, is there one particular thing I will be doing? Will I be storing those numbers after I generate them? I wouldn't be storing them anywhere. I will only be printing the numbers. So it means that the first of the counting numbers can be the control variable. So if I make this one the control variable, then I can end when the number in question is less than, I can end when it is equal to 10. So I know when I'm ending, well, counting numbers range from 1 and then to infinity. So since I know that I'm talking about the counting numbers between 1 and 10, I will end when the value is 10. What happens now is this control variable is telling me that I have x to be equal to 1. So if this condition is true, if x is less than or equal to 10, they will allow me to enter the body of the loop. Now, where is the body of the loop? Writing the body of the loop, I write end while. I'm using the while loop here, so it will allow me to enter. They will check this condition first, and then they will allow me to enter the body of the loop. If I enter the body of the loop now, what I do is, what am I supposed to be doing continuously? But before we find out what we'll be doing continuously, I would want to know if this particular loop will end. Is there anything at all that will cause this loop to end? Let's take a look at it carefully. This loop will run everything in its body for as long as this condition is true. The moment we enter this loop, we are entering the loop for the first time with the value of x being 1. Is 1 less than or equal to 10? The answer is yes. 1 is less than or equal to 10. And so it will do what is here. If it is printing that we want to do, we want to print the value of x. I used x over here as a control variable because we know when we are ending. And then because the value of x would have to be changing, that is why I am printing the value of x that is supposed to be changing. But this loop over here would not end. It will not pause. It has no way of stopping because we don't have something that changes the value of x. So the first time that the loop runs, it is going to print 1. And then when it gets to the end while over here, it will try and run the loop again because it has a value of x. And by comparing the value of x to this condition, is x less than 10? It will say yes, x is less than 10. And the value of, it will allow the loop to be entered again. And the statement inside the loop is x. But the value of x that we have when we run the loop, right now looking at the code, is still 1. So it will print 1 again. And then it will come and check, is 1 less than 10? To be said, it will say yes, it is less than 10. If it is less than 10, then it should do it again, print 1. But what we need the loop to do is not to be printing 1 continuously, where a loop will do whatever is inside it continuously, repeatedly. So what we need to do is to increase the value of x, which is the control variable, so that at a point, the value of x will cause this particular condition to be false. So when we have x and then we say x is supposed to be assigned an increment of the old value of x, then we can say that when the loop runs for the first time, value of x is 1. And then 1 is less than or equal to 10. So it is within the range. It will enter the body of the loop. When it enters the body of the loop, we print the value of x that was allowed to enter. The next thing that we do by printing, I write 1 over here. The next thing that we do is to increase the value of x. The value of x is 1 right now. So if I say x plus 1, I'm saying 1 plus 1. When you get the value, assign it to this x over here. When you assign it to this x over here, the loop will try running again. When it runs again, it is going to have x being 2 now. Is 2 less than or equal to 10? If this condition is true, to enter the body of the loop, which is here, by printing x, x is now 2. So I'll need to write 2 down here. And then the value of x, which is 2, would be incremented. So 2 plus 1 is 3. They will assign 3 to this one. And this is going to be 3. Let me bring the x back. If it is 3, they will check. The loop will check again. The moment it hits the last statement, to check again, is 3 less than or equal to 10? They will say yes, 3 is less than or equal to 10. So this condition will be true. If it is true, they will print x, but x is now 3. And then now it will continue until we get x to be incremented to 10. When x is incremented to 10, they will check, is 10 less than or equal to 10? If 10 is less than or equal to 10, then what will happen is they will allow us to enter. The value of x is 10, so they will print 10 over here. When they print 10, they will say 10 plus 1 should be assigned to the x. Okay, and then after it's assigned to the x, they will come up here and check. 10 plus 1 is 11. Is 11 less than or equal to 10? If 11 is less than or equal to 10, then we are going to say this evaluates to false, so we cannot enter the while loop. It will come after we are done. It will come to the end of the while loop and then start executing statements from this side. In this question, there is no statement over here, so we are not going to execute anything at all. This is where the loop ends, because our attempt was only to print the first 10 counting numbers. Let's take a look at the pictorial view as we have over here. We initialize the variable to 1, and then because that variable is going to be used incrementally, and that variable is supposed to be changing, we got an increment over here. The action that we needed to do on those variables, which is the counting numbers, was what I wrote here. So the print x, and then we have the incrementer. This is where the loop ends. Okay, so a similar fashion is over here. I think we saw this in the previous video. So the loop runs for the first time, and then the value was 1, printed 1, and then the loop runs again. But anytime it runs, it increases the value of the control variable. The moment the control variable does not help to meet the condition, the new value that was gotten after the increment is dropped off, and then the loop ends. I'm going to bring another video that would help to explain when we use a variable.